Welcome back to the rollout. I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Genevieve. Welcome.
We are so excited to have you here today. We've got a really interesting topic for you all, but first, let's dive into some news.
Yes, I, as the Kickstarter queen I am, have found us a new Kickstarter to back, and it's called Polyhero Dice Cleric, Warrior, Wizard, and Rogue. So this one is fun because it is actually a dice set for the Cleric class. And here in the dice set, Lindsay is going to post that link in the chat. You can check it out. The dice are actually shaped like things that clerics would use, like chalices. There's starbursts, there's warhammers, maces, potion bottles. They are so cute. And again, that's going to be in the chat. The Kickstarter has been fully funded and it ends on February the 4th. So you can go and get those cleric dice if you want them, or just check them out. They look really cool, and they come in ivory.
Ooh.
Yeah. Ooh.
And if we're talking like collectibles and stuff that you want to, have for your table, WizKids is releasing the Hand and Eye of Vecna collectible, which you can pre-order now for only $129. It'll be available in February. Also posting this in the chat. You guys have to look at this to see what it really is. But it's basically a shriveled hand holding an eyeball that looks like it's literally been torn from the socket. The eye is like 1.5 inches. The wooden display measures about 7 inches, so the whole thing is about 10.5 inches tall, but very cool if you are into all things, horror-y and just want this sitting on your table. Yeah, so there you go. Okay, well, let's dive into why we're here today. We are so excited to have these two guys with us to talk about double DMing. Please welcome Devan and Dustin from D4.
Oh, hello.
Hey, everybody.
So glad to be here.
Yeah, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourselves for those who are not familiar with who you are?
There's a lot.
Cliff Notes version.
long history.
I'm Dustin Fletcher, and I know we co-DM this little game called D4. This is
And it's called D4 because Devan and Dustin play Dungeons and Dragons.
Yep. Because we're punny like that.
Yeah.
So witty.
Yeah, we've been playing D&D. I've been playing D&D for like 20 years, if not more. We started LARPing together, and that's where we kind of learned to run things together.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. We're also in, cosplayers, costumers in the movie industry together.
Yep.
So we, over the past 10 to 12 years, we've learned to become one mind.
Yep. We are Jaeger pilots, and D4 is our giant mech robot to fight the kaiju.
Yeah, the kaiju is the players.
Yep.
Don't fight your players. It's about telling a story together.
Yeah.
It's all about that TPK, right?
And real quick before we dive into that, you guys also have very cool day jobs. Just briefly touch on what your day jobs are.
Like I said, we're costumers and we work in the film industry. I am currently on Doom Patrol as the Supersuit shop key, which means that anything that gets broken or scuffed or paint just gets a little bit messed up for any of the superheroes, being like Robot Man or Cyborg or Negative Man or anything like that, or any of the villains that have very elaborate costumes. I fix them and make them look all pretty and everything like that.
I'm similar, but I am more on set. I am a set specialty costumer and ager dyer. So right now I'm currently on Black Lightning, and I dress Black Lightning in a superhero suit. And so I literally dress superheroes for a living. It's pretty amazing. I can't complain.
I make superheroes.
It's true. It's true. Yeah. But I'll also repaint any of the stuff that gets scuffed up or anything like that. And then whenever I'm aging and dying, I pretty much take shiny new clothes and make them look worn and aged and gross and zombified and all sorts of fun stuff.
That's awesome. That's so cool. So let's let's just start at the beginning.
Yeah.
How did you guys decide that you two would get together and become double DMs together? Like, how did that idea form in your head? How did you know that that was something that would be possible to do?
Well, like we said, we kind of started running things together at a LARP. We met actually at a haunted house, a Netherworld haunted house in Atlanta.
Yep.
And we started hanging out. We saw that we liked similar things. And then he would not stop bugging me about coming to play this game. And I was like, oh, I'm a nerd, but I'm not that big of a nerd. Like, I play D&D, but I'm not a LARPer. And then I went and I played it. And I had so much fun. I played for 2 years, and then I tested out running stories, and we just figured out real quick off the bat, because we were both costumers, because we both liked horror and all of the things, we just started running things together.
And also building things together. Well, we were both prop makers, and so we would take that aspect of both working in the film industry and other things and making, physical props for the LARP, full sets, the whole 9 yards. And yeah, after 10 years of running stuff together, we got pretty good at telling cohesive stories together. But 3.5 years ago, I think at this point it was, I was running maybe a little bit, that's towards the end of it, but
yeah.
I was running a D&D game. I was running Out of the Abyss, Rage of Demons, and Devan was one of my players. And I had decided to travel to LA on a whim and go to this little thing called Stream of Many Eyes, where I may or may not have met the wonderful Lindsay and Genevieve.
Maybe it happened.
Many meetings happened at that event.
It is, and I got to meet you two wonderful, wonderful ladies, and I got enveloped in the streaming side of D&D, because I'd never really done any streaming. It was all home games and homebrew and all this other stuff, and like, I got sucked in. I had a blast. I basically stage managed and ran the costume side of Stream of Many Eyes. It was amazing, and getting to walk onto Waterdeep, I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna do Dragon Heist as my next campaign.
You got hooked on Dragon Heist.
I got hooked because that's what we were literally in the middle of for an entire weekend. And I was like, I think maybe we'll stream it. It'll be really low key. I'll throw up some webcams around my kitchen table where we play, and that'll be it.
Yeah, so he gets back, he tells me about this amazing LARPing experience, because that's basically what it was.
Yeah, with these amazing, combat actors who were throwing down,
I'm just
flipping on the hay they decided to throw on the ground.
Right, losing your voice at the end of it.
We open.
Oh my God.
And he goes, what do you think about co-DMing the next story and streaming it? And I was like, well, one, I've never heard of anybody co-DMing, but we basically did that at the LARP. So yeah, sure. And yeah, I guess we can stream it from our house, whatever. It's, it's nothing big. And then lots of things happen, blah, 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 blah. But it was kind of like, we have to put our money where our mouth is.
Yeah.
And
it's like, oh, now we're running a full studio show.
Yeah.
And we have to like you said, put our money where our mouth is and say, oh yeah, we can deliver on a quality show. And
yeah, because it went from like, oh, we're just, if people want to watch it, whatever,
sure,
to like, oh no, this has to look professional.
Partnering with Wizards of the Coast and Beetle and Grimm and D&D Beyond, and we're like, oh, okay, well then now I can't just have fun at my house. I have to actually put on a show and perform.
Oh no, this job's so hard.
Woe is me.
So what actually, okay, so just break down the logistics of how you go about double DMing. Do you like take turns? Are you both doing it at the same time, going back and forth? How does that actually work?
Well, there's multiple steps throughout the process. First things first, we're 50-50 across the board the whole way.
Yeah, there are some co-DMs that we've heard about where one person will play while the other one's DM, and they both work on the story, and then they'll switch out. Or one will do strictly story, one will do strictly stats. But we are 100% 50-50 down the board. We go into each session almost like a writer's room, writing a scripted show in a sense, where we're writing a story where we're basically we're we've got a board, we've got ideas on the board, we basically flesh it out and kind
Yeah.
of go.
We just spitball back and forth, like, oh, what about this? Okay, well, logically, this NPC has these viewpoints, so their next, they're going to do this, this, and this. Yeah, but that doesn't make sense because of this thing that the players did. Okay, well, now we have to switch that around. And it's just so much easier to have this small writer's room, even if it is just one person. Because a lot of DMs, they pull inspiration from all of the nerd stuff that is in the world and from people online, just their friends, whatever. But since we're best friends and we're kind of like hive mind, it is just nice to trust that person and also know that you're going to be on the same page.
Yep.
And so we just we do the outline of what we're doing, and then we fill in the rest, and we also ask our players every week what their plans are and kind of integrate it all together. So that's basically it. But then Sunday comes.
Yeah, and so we'll also like we both come up with the idea. Devan's strength is basically word vomiting a beautiful structured sentence. I can't do that. That is not my specialty. And so while we'll come up with the outline, we'll basically get the backbone and bread and pudding of the story. He'll flavor it, and then if there's any combat encounters, then we'll design the map art together, and then I'll usually step off and I'll actually build the map because we custom make all of our maps for every encounter.
Yep. And the reason why we did that is because everybody loves Dwarven Forge. Everybody loves the Warlock lock tiles that came out from WizKids and stuff like that. But not everybody can afford those. And so we wanted to show people who we were inspired by, being Black Magic Craft, DM Scotty,
the Muse, Crafting Muse,
and all of them, great people, wonderful inspirations and teachers for anybody that wants to learn. And using dollar store craft supplies and making really elaborate, beautiful maps. And we do time-lapse videos and show pictures and things like that for anybody that wants to see our maps more close up and how we put it together.
Right.
That's awesome. So nowadays, I know you have the show, obviously. That's a huge commitment. Do you guys, we have a question. Do you DM together only now, or do you sometimes do solo DMs, and how does it compare? Like if you're doing a project yourself or together?
We do DM separately. D4 is the only one that will usually, that's our strictly co-DM aspect. It spoiled me. I'm not gonna lie. Like like having that person to lean on, especially like if you're in a scene and a player has a question, the scene can continue while one goes on. Having a conversation with two separate NPCs and not talking to yourself
so good
is like game changer to be able to react off of each other and play off of each other. And
other things that are great, like if a player asks a question that we don't know the answer to, but we know we have access to the information, one of us will switch to doing that research, and the other one will carry on the scene, as you said. Another one is, because we have the maps and stuff, typically we have one of us that's controlling the physical aspect, while the other one is engaging with the player and doing descriptions and things like that. So it eliminates as much as possible. There's still some times where there's a little dead air, but it eliminates as much dead air as possible. So it keeps the game moving and also is extremely immersive as possible.
Yeah, but I have a weekly home game that I run for a couple of the like streamers that is not streamed, that we can kind of get just some off-camera fun and not have to perform. And it's been a lot of fun to kind of take that and run that. And occasionally Devan has a home game that he runs that I play in. Yeah, so we'll switch off between, depending on what it is and what we're doing.
Another thing is, so let's say we're in a scene, or one of us gets stumbled on our words, or we're not fully visualizing the image because we trust each other and because we've written together so much, and we know basically the same, like the direction that we're both going. One of us will pick up, and anytime there's a lull, be like, oh, yes and. And sometimes that requires talking about certain things that were made in like decisions that were made in the moment after the game, but we just make it work. And so it becomes a lot of yes and I would suggest that you'd have to do it with somebody that you trust and someone that you're working with the entire time, just so that you're on the same page while playing the game and not just writing it.
Yeah.
Right. So do you guys have like a Bible for your game? Like, you know, like TV shows have a Bible, and do you guys have one specifically for your game, or are you guys more of like a pantser rather than a plotter?
No, we absolutely do. I think
It could be better
it
organized.
could be better organized.
So
you know,
yes and no.
it is definitely not as organized as it could be, but we definitely have like each episode has its own outline and breakdown, and then we have like a grand timeline of notes, and you know, each character histories and backstories are together, and anything related to that character will go into that folder.
Google Docs.
It's all Google Docs. Google Docs is a lifesaver.
And you know, especially since, you know, our jobs are very demanding. Anytime that we have lull or somebody's at home, they can be working on it, and the other person can see what's being written and not having to be in the same spot at the same time while writing. So,
which is huge,
Right.
because in the film industry, we're working at times 70 hours a week, and still planning a weekly show, which also takes about 20 to 30 hours of our time a week. So yeah, it's
Right.
you know, it's a second job, but it's fun.
Yeah. So, I mean, so you guys play within the official Wizards world. You know, you're in Faerun, you're in, and I know one of the things we had talked about when we talked previously about that is that you said you consider yourselves the most authentic, or when it
canonical.
Canonical. There you go. Explain that a little bit.
We try to be as canon as we can to the lore. There's so many like Easter eggs for any of the Forgotten Realm lore junkies. Like we go into like head first deep lore dives whenever we hit certain aspects.
Very long rabbit holes. There are some times where I've done research that like 8 hours plus while writing, and it's just one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. But the thing is that having those little Easter eggs, one, I think enriches the story that's already been laid out for so many years. But also there's so much good lore out there, and the best things are finding those little nuggets that are forgotten about, that only like the most hardcore of devoted nerds to the Faerun world would or Forgotten Realms lore would know. But it's just enriched our story trying to be canonical. It's a little bit more work, that's all.
Yeah, but it's super fun, and you know, but there's been like aspects where it's like there's this lore, but it's very vague and there's no details, and so we'll kind of take that and shape it and give it an actual backbone and fit it into our story.
Or there's lore that's been perceived one way, but everybody knows stories are seen from multiple angles, and there's always your truth, their truth, and then the actual truth.
Yeah.
And so there would be some times where it's like, oh, this is what happened, and we're like, that is what happened, but also this, because it was perceived incorrectly.
Yeah.
Right. So sorry, Lindsay.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, since you mentioned that you like pick all this lore out of the actual canonical, you know, works, does your comment section like go crazy with people picking out these Easter eggs and things? Like, are people like really into like dissecting this stuff, or is it more like for more of your guys' enjoyment?
A couple times we've had a few lore junkies kind of get like grab hold and like, oh my god, this is so, and like, you know, I love that reaction, like seeing that reaction of when we put those Easter eggs and those comments, or even like the live comments on when we're live on Twitch. It's just like, that is one of the reasons why we love to do that.
But more often it is definitely for us and for wanting to be canonical. But like Dustin said, it is those moments where the lore hounds pick up on what we're talking about, even because sometimes we're very vague about it, sometimes we're very heavy-handed, and it's fun either way. When people, it's like when we all started going to the Marvel movies and we'd see those Easter eggs and you're like, oh my god, that I know what that is.
Or even more so, if you were cosplaying or see a cosplay of the most obscure thing that only one person at that convention knows, but that one person is gonna flip their shit because you're that one, like so obscure.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what that is.
Yeah.
It's a good feeling.
Yeah.
So do you guys have any plans to, I don't know, maybe write a book about co-DMing or anything like that?
Probably not.
Yeah, no. I can purple prose a story. I can't autobiography.
Yeah. Yeah. It's we're happy to talk about it all day. There's tons of amazing content out there, and I mean we can talk about it all day, but actually like putting out a book, it's just
because there's not really a this is how you do it. As Dustin said before, there are multiple ways to co-DM. There's the mechanics story co-DM. There's the player DM switch out co-DM. There's our style, which is Legion. We are one, and there's just many different ways, and it's really whatever works for you that is enjoyable and creates a great story. That's really all.
I mean, you get down to it, it's just all about having fun. Like,
right. And you say that, and then tomorrow the book deal is going to come down the pike, and then you have to figure it out.
I mean, you're like, with all our free time.
Yeah,
like
that.
It's like
if D&D was my full-time job, then sure, but
I feel like a lot of us say that. We're like, if this was our full-time job, so many things would be different.
Nope.
Absolutely. I actually have a question. Since you guys are both in costuming, and I mean, I'm obviously in costuming too, on a smaller scale. Do you guys do cosplay or any sort of like LARPing stuff during your games?
Oh, during D4.
Yes.
For Halloween
or any game that you play.
Yeah, if I'm doing a one shot or like a charity game, 100%
Right.
I will dress up, full makeup, etc. If we're doing like a Halloween episode, we all dress up. If it's a con, a live show, we'll dress up at a live show.
But dressing up every week, it's a little much, especially since we're long narrative and full year round, minus December. We're not one of those 10 to 20 seasonal episode, which a lot of typically has more people that dress up, which is awesome. Great for them. They have the time and the ability to do so. We just can't force people to commit to that.
Yeah.
And I don't want to force people to commit to that.
We do, however, do physical props. Like we love like letters and maps and anything that we can physically hand our players.
At one of our live
Diane
shows.
would love you.
I know, right?
Diane is the exact same way. She loves
at one of our live shows, because we were into LARPing and creating tangible, like immersive props, we actually had this crazy puzzle wheel that was involved with a riddle that we secretly hid underneath their chairs. Like there was a small little cubby hole built into the bottom of their chairs.
Look
And
under
so-
your chest.
Yeah,
Yep.
so there was a point where we're like, oh, if you reach underneath your chair, and they're like, what? And they all had pieces of the puzzle and then had to figure it out live and stuff like that, which was neat. I'm not sure if we could do that even while in studio, but
Yeah, probably do it a little easier in studio. Quarantine, the pandemic has definitely thrown a wrench in things like that, because we are a studio show, but we have adapted to the remote play aspect for the past year because of things, but we wanted to keep the story going. We're still making maps and doing custom terrain and all that, but now we have multiple map cams, and we'll just have instead of them getting to see it firsthand, then we'll have an actual camera that they can look at to see the map and their minis and all of that.
Right.
That's cool. I'm actually going to ask you the same question that I asked Diane. And since you guys make props and things, do you ever like ship them off to your players like as little keepsakes sometimes?
If we're in studio, we just like anything that we make, they keep, like any physical prop like that. Absolutely.
We have one of our players is a lore seeker of Ogma, and she keeps a plethora of notes. I think she's on binder 3.
Yep.
And each binder's like this thick, just to let you know how much lore we put into our games. And then she also keeps a lot of the physical props, anything that's personal to their character they keep, but things like maps and other things that are kind of more for the show, we actually auction off annually in our Extra Life charity.
Yeah, all of our custom terrain and everything we'll set and do an auction so that way we can raise as much as we can for Extra Life and
That's
other
amazing.
charities.
Yeah.
Wow. So what is the feedback that you've gotten from players? Because obviously you have your double DM show, you have the regular, your home games that you're DMing independently. What is the players' response to the differences or, positives, negatives to playing in the game where you double DM as opposed to ones where there's just one DM?
I think the biggest compliment we always get is, like we were saying earlier, is having the conversation that feels natural with multiple NPCs. And it's not one DM trying to think in two minds at once in the sense of like, oh, well, this NPC just said this. Well, how would that NPC react? We literally just react.
Yep.
So,
we've definitely, our players seem to enjoy it. So I think we're doing okay. I mean, I don't know. I'm definitely one of those types where it's like, how you doing? I don't know. I don't know. They seem to be having fun, I guess. So.
Yeah, we asked them. They say that they're enjoying it. They love it.
Yeah, we are a very dark and emotional, heavy roleplay show. We definitely push the emotional bleed aspect of role playing that we do, and that's for any aspect of happiness, sadness, fear. Like we try to get that to our players, and so we definitely, when we have those intense moments of heavy emotional stuff, we definitely aftercare and make sure that, hey, is everybody okay? Do we need to go out for milkshakes and carbs and other stuff to kind of to decompress, because we've definitely had quite a few of those episodes that are very, very dark and heavy and emotional.
But that's just kind of our writing style. And we made sure that all of our players were cool with that before we started playing the game. You never want to sit down at a table and not know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
They all had either LARPed with us or had played D&D with us previously at some point. And we chose them all because they're amazing role players. They weren't actually a group of friends that played for years and then came together on stream. Some of them knew each other, some of them didn't. And so we had a couple of session zeros, and then we had actual in-character session zeros. And they're amazing. And now we're all family.
Yeah, we're going into our third year this year. And I could not have asked for a better cast ever. Like there are times where Devan and I will just sit back and they steal the show, and I enjoy it every time.
We are blown away, and there's going to be times, if you go back and watch our 90 episode catalog now, warning, is there's times where you think you know a character or you think you know a player and how they're going to react, and then they'll just surprise you, not just with like character choices, but with role play moments. Mm-hmm. There have been times where it's just like, oof, I need a moment because I need to process this. Dustin, you take over and talk right now, because I can't talk. And sometimes you'll actually hear us get choked up. And if you go and you just want a spoiler of like how immersive our emotions can be, go check out episode 48. It probably won't impact you as much because you don't know the character history leading up to it, but oof.
Yeah, that episode. First character death.
It was
we definitely had those like people and we're just crying and
we have our custom resurrection rules that we created. We actually released them on the DMs Guild, and they kind of take resurrection and make it more impactful. There is a chance that players don't come back from resurrection. It makes it to where death means something.
Instead of just a diamond cost. Because honestly, once you get to a certain level, it's money. That's it. You can die as much as you want. It's just money.
Yep. But resurrection requires a ritual and requires all of the players to put something into it, and it really gives that moment to really let players shine.
And then there's a LARPing aspect to it, which, because we LARPed, and there is a blind pool of marbles. And there are good marbles, there are bargaining marbles, and then there are death marbles. And for everything that the other players do, it affects the
total
bag.
number of marbles in the bag. And then when you pull, if you pull a life marble, then you come back, you pull a bargaining marble, then you basically roll on a chart where you're basically bargaining with death. And you basically come back with a complication. And then if you pull a death one, then that's your final death. And you don't come back.
Wow.
No ands, ifs, or buts. It's your time.
Yep.
So that brings up the interesting point of, mechanics and such. You guys have talked a lot about the role play and how it really helps to have two people for your NPCs and things like that. I mean, when it comes to like the actual technical side of playing and the mechanics of playing, have you ever run into issues where it's like one person's like, oh, well, I think it should be this. And you're like, no, I think it should be this. Obviously there's a lot of structure and rules within D&D, but there is some, flexibility when it comes to like, this is what the DM decides. I mean, has that ever been an issue?
The one thing that's been amazing about going remote is that we can do this right. And you can't hear a word that we're saying, and it's so good because in moments like that we're like, oh no, they just did something either really clever or unexpected, or oh, that kind of messes with something mechanically. How do we address that? And we can have that quick conversation. But most of the time, all of that is dealt with before we even sit down at the table. We know what the mechanics are going to be. I try and think of, like, I write the scene and I put myself in the scene as a player and I go, well, if I was going to interact with this scene right here, what are the choices I would have? And I typically already plan those out, just so we have DCs kind of set and just a general idea of what could happen. Just so we're more prepared.
Yeah, our players are pretty good. They're very good on it's, every now and then we're human, we're going to make a mistake. And it's like, okay, it's just that in the moment, this is my decision. And then we'll kind of retcon that afterwards and say, okay, moving forward, this is what it'll be. But, for brevity's sake and to not hold up the show while we look up stuff, it's like, this is what it is. We're just going to move forward. And then once it's done, then we'll be like, okay, you're right. That's the way it will be. And that's how it'll be from here on out.
Yeah.
Because, we are a game, we're having fun, but at the same time, D4 is a show. We are producing a show, and, the show must go on. And so and our players are performers and they understand that. And, I can't think of any example where we've had really an issue like that come up. Like I said, there's been a couple times where it's just like, hey, what about this? And it's like, okay, cool. Let's just do this moment and then we'll move on. But
I can't think of an exact example, but I know it has happened before. But
so has there ever been an instance when in the long catalog of shows that you've done now as double DMs that was something that surprised you and wasn't expected that came out of, how your shows are formatted?
That's a tough question. I want to say out the gate, no, just because we had like 10 years under the belt already.
Yeah, I as far as that goes, I don't think there's anything that surprised me because, we co-ran a LARP together, and you tend to get lots of problems there that kind of prepares you for this gauntlet. It's more of a gauntlet leading up to this. From a logistical standpoint, I don't think so. I mean, there's definitely, like, from a streaming standpoint, learning along the way of what not to do while you stream, and the Twitch side of things, because we're not streamers, we're not we work in the film industry, but we are costumers.
We're behind the camera.
And even on that aspect, we're not camera department. And so we're lucky enough to have an incredible production team with Rock Punch and our production coordinator Ross, who is like, they're our tech gurus and keep us going. Our technical director Bailey really just make sure that we are actually on air live on time, and we could not do it without them.
Or when the goblins decide to cause chaos, they're there to fix things. And we're so thankful for all of them doing everything they do. Ross, Bailey, Ashley, all the time, and then Alex back in the old episodes, and
our former technical director,
Colton, Sam, all of them, everybody that helps us
produce the show.
Yeah,
We could not do it without our producers and our behind the scenes, because I can make people look good on camera. I can dress them all day long. I can tell a story, but when it comes to what plugs in, I
think it wasn't a surprise, but it was something that we learned is, even in the LARP, is not something I noticed, but this has definitely shown our strengths and weaknesses of each other. Like Dustin knows my strengths and weaknesses, I know his, and so that has helped us be more streamlined, I think, in the creation process, where it's like, okay, in the beginning, it was a lot more, like we say 50-50 now, but it was very much 50-50 in the beginning. And now it's like, we know where to draw the line where one of us takes over the aspect that we're more talented at.
Yep.
Right. So as you said, you have a really, wonderful, cast of people behind you, a great production team helping you out with this stuff. The one thing that was clearly unexpected for us last year was COVID. And you have a weekly show. So how long did it take you guys? Like, was there planning? Did you guys kind of see the signs? You're like, well, we should maybe start getting some webcams up there. And how were you able to stay on schedule or
or did you
just like production team figure it out?
Miracles happened because we didn't miss a single episode. We started like right in March of last year, right when the hiccup happened, and we were like, okay, it's starting to get bad. On, I think it was like Thursday, we were like, okay, guys, this is getting serious. Does everybody have the means to stream from home? And everyone was like, yeah, we should be able to do that. We had the very first episode, Devan and I actually went to the studio, and it was just the two of us in the studio, and we had our technical director come in, and we were in the studio, and everyone else was at home. And then after that, it was like, okay, now it's even worse, or we don't even want to go into the studio. So we set up, and back then you can definitely tell the quality. We have like a convention banner that we hang on the table at conventions that we put on the wall behind us that's got the D4 logo. It looks so ratchet.
Oh man, it's wild. It's so wild because we started thanks to Meeple Madness, this amazing local game store. That's where we started. We started playing in this game store, and then we took a December off, our first December. We always take December off, and we built the set.
We built a full set, like to look like a wizard's lab, and stone walls and shelves, and
it looks so good. We got new overlays, and everything was amazing, and we're there for 2 months, and so we're like, wow, our production quality is so good now. And then COVID hit, and it was just like we're like visually it was like, oh man. And so we had to fix that real quick. So I think that was the biggest hurdle, is making sure that everything looked streamlined and professional again, just from a visual and audio standpoint. But luckily we did not miss any games, and we had enough of the equipment already because we have friends in other locations of the United States, and we sometimes would either have just regular hangouts or Zoom games with them already.
So it has been a blessing and a curse, where obviously not being in studio, but because of that, we've actually been able to bring in some guests that we wanted to be on the show for a while, but they live on the West Coast in LA or Seattle, and we haven't been able to bring them in, or even in Canada. And so with that, we were able to finally actually bring in those guests and have a couple more guests than we normally wouldn't be able to, because they would have to be in Atlanta to be in the studio.
Right.
So that's been nice.
We actually even got to switch DMs one time.
That's right. Yeah. So we had B. Dave Walters guested DM D4, and we got to guest DM A Darkened Wish. And that was super fun. Like never really done that before. So that was kind of fun.
Yeah, it was wild. It was a lot of fun.
So do you guys have a favorite co-DM moment, and on the flip side, a not so great co-DM moment.
Oh man, the one that just comes to my mind automatically is early on, like one of the first sessions. They come across this elderly gnome couple or halfling couple.
Oh, yes, that was so good.
And like just surprise them and scare them. And so like this was like I think one of the first displays of being a co-DM, and you know they're like this elderly old man and woman, and we're like cradling each other's in each other's arms because we're scared, and
it was so good, such a good moment. We were fully immersed,
Yeah.
and the players had broken into this couple's house, and so it was just this elderly gnome couple, and it was good.
Yeah.
It no huge plot point at all.
Nope. None whatsoever.
But sometimes it's the little moments, and it's
Yeah.
like those one-off NPCs that you create that for whatever reason your players just love, and you have to keep bringing them back. I mean, yeah, things always surprise you.
I can't really think of a bad moment. I mean, not off the top of my head anyway.
Well, that's good. I mean, to not have bad moments to have to worry about.
Was there a moment that like the players just went completely off the rails, or things just went sideways that you had to kind of rein it in?
There was one time very in particular, and we don't railroad. The reason why a lot of our stuff feels kind of like very cohesive or narrative is because every week we ask our players,
what are you doing?
What are you doing?
What is your character's goals this week? And
Yeah.
so they're like, I want to do this, this, and this. Okay, great. We're going to plan for that, and that, because
Yeah.
that's what you as a player want to do.
And that means that we can enrich that scene with descriptions, incorporate what they're looking for, and then also the NPCs that they're looking for, and think and get into the headspace of that NPC, especially since we're playing in a urban setting, which means they have access to any person they'd want to talk to. But the surprise was they had just saved Renair Neverember, and the Watch were coming, and one of our PCs, for personal reasons, decided to run
and make it look like he was the bad guy, and it sparked a chase scene through the city, which ended in natural 20 or critting on a guard and almost killing said guard. And,
Oh God.
and it was definitely a like, oh wow, okay, this is a surprising moment, but turned out to be such an incredible scene, very enriching. It ended up bringing in an NPC related to their backstory that we weren't planning to bring in for months. And it ended up bringing them in, and
the scene was awesome. It's so good. And it wouldn't have happened if they didn't make the wild choice to do something that is very detrimental to their character.
Yep. But it's moments like that like that's D&D, like it's Dungeons and Dragons. Like
Yeah.
we're gonna plan for A through Z, and then the players are gonna come up with 1.7 Z, which isn't even feasible. I'm like, oh wow, I didn't even plan on it. Yeah, so
Right.
But fun stuff.
So is there anything that you guys haven't done yet in your 2 years, whatever, that you really want to do within the game?
Probably.
It's a good question, but it's also kind of vague in the sense of oh man, there's probably a whole bunch like narratively that we can't talk about, for obvious reasons. But is there anything like, yes, and I forget the name of the show, but Ivan ran it, and it was a post-apocalyptic game. Deadlands? No.
His Outbreak Undead.
Yeah.
Is that it? Yeah.
And the set was interactive. right?
Right.
There would be times where it's like, oh, I searched the, the train for supplies. And he's like, okay, go reach in that box over there. Go do it. And they reached, and then some like zombie arm burst out of the wall and grabbed for them. And I was like, I want that. I don't know how to do it yet, but I want it. I want more immersion.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
But it's always about more immersion. That's 100%.
Awesome. So what would you say is next for y'all? Like, do you have any big plans coming up?
Couple months, next
I
year.
know, right?
years.
Once y'all can
ooh,
see
you
each
want
other
to talk
face
about
to
that?
face again.
No
I don't even know
spoilers,
what you're-
obviously.
What we're working on?
I don't even know what we're working on. Oh yeah. There is sorry, I need more coffee, apparently. There's D4 constantly, like I said, we're a long narrative show, so it never stops. Like we take December off because we don't take any other time off.
Yeah. Also, that's like all of the holiday season.
Yeah,
stuff
and it
like
just
that.
kind of knocks all that out of the way. We are working on a recap show to kind of, because we are 90 episodes in. Each of our episode is anywhere from 4 to 5 hours long. So we are, there's a lot of hours of content. And so we are doing a fun, different style take on like almost like a comedy take on our recaps.
We're such a dark and gritty show. Our production team was like, hey, what if we did it this way? And they gave us a sample and we died laughing. It tells the story, not like verbatim what's happening.
enough.
Have you ever, it's like DBZ abridged, if
Yeah.
anybody's ever seen that. So DBZ is very gritty and very long.
Mhm.
And then abridged is very short and
very
hilarious.
funny. Yeah, very similar to that. So hopefully that's coming out soon. That'll be teased here in the next couple weeks anyway. And that's the biggest one on the horizon that we're working on. As far as D4 goes. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Our day jobs are so taxing. We don't get to be like, I'm going to be on this show. I'm going to be doing this.
There's a
Right.
couple of things that we'd like to announce, but the COVID pending,
Yeah.
so can't really announce it yet.
Right.
So
Well, and that's always the balance, is like, trying to get something off the ground while you are still having to do your full-time job and, everything scheduling. Sure. Yeah. And then obviously once COVID is lifted, well, obviously we're already seeing the entertainment industry pick up steam now, but it's, once we're not having to be as confined, that's just going to steamroll even more.
yes, once it's gone, it'll be a much better world, or at least dealt with more medically.
Right.
So
Yeah. Exactly.
Yep.
Because it'd be great to be back in the studio.
I would love to be back in the studio. I would love to be in my set. That's just, we got a custom table made that's just collecting dust.
Hasn't even been used.
Never,
yet.
no, not even been planted. No dice has ever been rolled on it. And
Oh
it's really
no.
sad. It's just,
That is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
it's just sitting in the studio,
Um,
all lonesome.
So you mentioned that you guys like to make things for your players to be able to give them. What are some of the most interesting things that you've made that when you were able to play in person, obviously, that you have given out to the players? You mentioned letters and scrolls and stuff like that. Is there anything that jumps to mind?
We took the Stone of Golor and we broke it up, and so we actually carved and sculpted a eyeless version of it that didn't have the eyes in it, and so we made that and gave it to them so that they had it, and then every time they got an eye, it would.
Yeah, and we had the Beetle and Grimm's Waterdeep Platinum Edition box, and so I sat down and made it as accurate to size and scale and color as possible to the one that came with that, so that when they did complete it, hand them the completed one. And
we've done a couple ciphers and like word puzzles and such, where they had to take a paper and cipher what was said in it. And then the biggest one, I think, is the Dragon Con live show, where we hid the puzzle pieces under their chairs, had the full puzzle. They had it was even more intricate, where they each got a scrap of paper of a phrase that led to that, which had a blacklight puzzle on it that they actually had, which gave them the pattern to.
It was so intricate for a live show.
Yeah.
Probably too intricate.
Right.
And yeah, so it was super fun to kind of build that. But almost any text prop will custom make and age and hand it to them if they ever get a letter or anything like that. Will be, you know,
Yeah.
Dragon Heist has origami swans that, you know, they can send message, and so anytime they would get a swan, we would literally give them an origami version of that to where they would literally open and it would be, you know, the letter that they receive.
That is
Um,
so fun. I mean, and you know, the interact, I mean, obviously a lot of what we do is theater of the mind, but when you can have those interactive elements, the builds, the items that you can give players, it just makes it so much more immersive.
yeah, it's that LARP aspect of it that we are, you know, are so used to, that we try to bring into for that immersion. You
Right.
know, and even on our maps, like, you know, we tend to try to do fog or steam or some aspect like that to kind of bring that, you know, into effect, lighting effects, et cetera, to really make it, you know,
Yeah.
pop.
Yeah.
So, you know, we had a swamp map and it had dry ice, and we actually had it carved out, and we actually reached into the dry ice and pulled a mini out that was hidden in the dry ice and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was super cool. That was probably not the most technically difficult and definitely not the hardest to build, but it caused the most problems, but also had the best effect.
It did.
The
I've
best
been in
effect.
plays before where we've used dry ice and it is problematic many
Yep.
times.
Yeah.
I've
Um,
never had an experience with a show that involved dry ice that ever went smoothly.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah. Yep.
So true.
Oh.
So, you know, we've covered so many of the aspects that you guys do in your daily life, and it seems like your background in LARPing and your background, obviously, in the film industry has just really fueled what you bring to the table as DMs. I mean, do you feel like that's kind of been the biggest inspiration for what you've done, or you know, did D&D come first and inspired the other stuff?
No, it was definitely LARPing inspired the D&D.
For me, it was so I've always been a movie hound, and when I was a kid, I wanted to be an animator for Disney. I've always been an artist. I've always loved Halloween. I started making my own house haunt when I was 13. I worked for Netherworld for 13, 14 years. And so it was creating characters and costumes there that really pulled me in. And I was playing D&D occasionally during that time. And I loved the game. It was just hard to get a group together until he was like, hey, LARP, LARP, LARP. And I was like, no, okay.
Right.
I will let everybody know that has not tried it. It is just as nerdy as you think it is, but way more awesome than you think it is. So
What character
Right.
did you? What was your first character for the LARP?
my very first character was a mixture of the Butcher from Gangs of New York
Oh.
and Sweeney Todd. I was not a
Yes.
hero.
Yes.
Clearly not.
I was gonna say that's like chaotic evil or just straight up evil. I'm not sure.
He was, yeah.
Yeah.
He 100% is an NPC in D4. We actually, a lot of our LARP NPCs or PCs that we played, or we've actually put into D4 as NPCs.
Oh, great.
They're typically like very side characters.
Yeah.
More Easter eggs for friends of ours than huge narratively driven NPCs.
Right.
Yep.
Well,
Because we didn't want it to make it like, oh, look at this character that we made, and let's just play. I want to, I'm gonna be a player now. It's
yeah.
not about that. It's more so like, oh, hey, I know that person.
Yeah.
That was cool.
And it's like they already have a personality. They already have a backstory. We already know how to immediately play them. So it just fits, and it really makes it easy just to fit them in. It's like, oh, I need an NPC for this scene. Let's just use this person.
And any DM that tells you that they don't use their player characters as NPCs is lying.
It's easier to drag and drop.
Yeah.
Yep.
To start from ground
Useful
zero.
tool.
100%.
Where can folks find you online? Where can they check out their show? Where can they see what you're doing?
So D4 is every Sunday at 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern time on twitch.tv/rockpunchatl or twitch.tv/DND. I can be found on Twitter at Flash Fletch.
And you can sometimes find me. I more so only heart react at Devan is not here on Twitter because I don't tweet.
Yes, and the show is at D4DND RPG across all socials. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
You heard it, guys. Please check them out. Like and follow, subscribe, show them some Fabled 42 love. Thank you guys so much for joining us. This was great.
Thanks for having us. Yeah, it was a blast.
Okay, well, you guys stay tuned for Realms of Ukador at 6:30 Pacific. So come back here in about 30 minutes. Genevieve, what's the raffle for the giveaway?
Well, the code for the raffle for the giveaway is raffle.
Surprise! It's the same one every week, guys.
So
Shocking awe.
Change it up.
What? The password is guessed. So type in raffle into the chat to be entered for our giveaway, and we will be announcing the winner at the beginning of the Realms of Ukador. So please stay tuned and please watch. Realms is going to be a fantastic show. Thank you guys. Thank you, Dustin and Devan, for joining us. We really had a lot of fun with you guys.
Thanks for having us. It was a lot of fun.
Yes,
And make sure come back next week. And we are Genevieve. Next week, what are we talking about? Emerald Knights. We're gonna have some Emerald Knights on here talking about yay or nay of 2020, their favorite and not so favorite tabletop games of 2020. So we'll find out. So join us for that.
Yes. All right. Bye, guys. Thank you so much.
Bye.